Hello, everyone, and welcome to A New Direction. My name is Jay Izzo, and yeah, I'm fighting a froggy voice. I got that pre-summer cold thing going on, but you know what? We're going to fight right through it because that's what we do here. We persevere. We're resilient. And speaking of somebody who perseveres and resilience, guess who's going to be with me today? Oh, yeah, she's back with me. You know her, Donna Weber. She wrote this outstanding book, Onboarding Matters. Let's be honest, folks. You may have customers, but do you have clients that champion your business? I'm just going to be silent and let you think through that for a second. All right, then the next question is this. Do you really realize that it is costing you more money in customer acquisition than it would cost you in client retention? I'm going to stay silent there for a while too and let you kind of talk that. Yeah, so what's happening is when you're transitioning a customer to a loyal client, what you're really doing is you are increasing profit. Have you thought about it that way? That hurts, doesn't it? When you start thinking about it that way, right? Because it's real easy to pour money into marketing, right? So we can get more and more customers, right? But what are you doing with clients who are championing your business that are leading to better results of better clients who are going to actually be more loyal than trying to do the guesswork out of the customers that you may try to get? Donna Weber's going to join me. She's unbelievable. She's outstanding. She's awesome. She's fantastic. And she's back, and that's awesome. But before we get to her, let's do what we do every week, right? Here's the thing. We're 4-part people: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual people, right? And the truth of the matter is, if we're not constantly working on ourselves day by day, right, then what happens is we're not growing. And if we're not growing, you know what the alternative is, right? We're dying. that's pretty, I'm sorry. It's just the way it is, right? Because we don't stay static. The truth of the matter is, if you're not growing, you are dying because life passes us by, right? And we have to work on ourselves. So physically, scale of 1 to 10, 1 being miserable, 10 being outstanding. How would you say you're doing in the physical area? Like eating right, getting enough exercise, drinking water, getting enough sleep, right? How would you say you're doing? By the way, you can hear that I've got this cold, right? That doesn't mean I'm a 0 because I got a cold. I'm still watching my diet. I'm watching what I'm putting into my body. Matter of fact, I have to be more careful. Even though I can't work out like the way I want to, I got to drink water. I got to get plenty of sleep. I got to eat right. I could still be a 7.5, 8. I still can, right? So this is the thing. That's how you have to judge yourself, right? So what's your first number? Okay, good. Got it. Second number, right? The mental number, right? Right brain, left brain, right brain creative, left brain logical. How are you feeding it? What are you doing? What are you doing to feed that thing? Are you reading books? Are you listening to books? Are you taking a new instrument up? Are you learning a foreign language? Excuse me, whatever you got to do. Are you, on a scale of 1 to 10, are you actively being a participant in your knowledge and your understanding and your mental growth? How would you rate yourself? Right? I am so fortunate I get to do the show. I read a book every week for my show. It's just awesome. I highly encourage you, read a book a week. You say, I can't do that. Well, okay. I will tell you this. You know what? The most successful people in the world read. It's a fact. They really do. The most successful, they just read. Warren Buffett reads 500 pages a day. I don't come close to that. But he's pretty successful. I mean, minorly, if you think that's success. All right, so you got that number. Third number is emotional. Look, we have been in a pandemic for 2 years. We have been under stress. We've been under pressure. I don't know what your life is like, but things aren't always easy. We're dealing with inflation and all sorts of stuff is happening. How well are you able to control your emotions first? And then secondly, how well are you able to tap into and understand the emotions of others? Donna Weber, she is so brilliant. You know what she talks about? It's really excellent. You want to turn a customer into a client? Start with empathy. Do you really know the emotions of your client? Yes or no? Do you know what they want, what they need, what they're feeling? How do they feel about you? She talks about that in this book. That's really, really good, called Onboarding Matters, because it does. Right? So on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you say you're doing? All right? Emotionally. Finally, spiritually, listen. I know there are people out there who have told me I am not a spiritual person, but you know what? You are. I know people tell me I don't have faith, but if you have hope, that's spiritual. The truth of the matter is, if you're getting up for any reason at all, you're spiritual. You have a spirit within you that desires to stay alive, that desires to go to the next thing. There is something inside you that pushes you. We all have it. We all have it. And then the second part of that is, what do you run to when life goes bad? Because whatever that is your God, or that is your spiritual area, right? So if the first thing you run to when life hits you hard in the face is God, then I would ask you how that's going. If it's nature, I would say, well, then how's that going? If it's meditation, I would ask you how that's going, right? And then what do you need to do to change that? Those 4 areas, right? So you got 4 numbers. There's 4 numbers like legs of a chair uneven, bad on your posture over the course of time. Same token, if the chair legs are too low, guess what happens? You cannot eat at a normal table so that you can be nourished. And speaking of someone who's got her legs all at the same height and they're all at the right height, her name is Donna Weber. She is, ladies and gentlemen, the world's leading expert in customer onboarding. And she's been doing it for more than 2 decades. She helps high-growth startups and established enterprises create customers for life. Hear that. She's a recognized customer success thought leader, strategist, and influencer. Her expertise helps companies scale customer success organizations, decrease time to first customer value, increase customer lifetime value, and accelerate product usage and adoption. Donna is a sought-after speaker, consultant, author, and of course, it's this book, Onboarding Matters, is what we're going to talk about. And she is going to join us right now. And so, ladies and gentlemen, welcome her back, and welcome back to A New Direction, Donna Weber. Welcome back, Donna.
Jay, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here again. And, you know, I'm over here writing notes. I take as many notes as I am talking with you. It's great to learn from you and to be together again.
Thank you. Well, you're so engaging, and if people are watching this, and I hope you are, and by the way, feel free to ask us questions. Type in a question. Feel free to ask questions, because you know, we haven't offered that on this show before, and I don't know why, because I've got the social media stuff right in front of me. So if you want to type in a question, if you're watching us on Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever type it in, and if it's a question that we think will fit into the show, we're gonna ask it. And by the way, if we use your question on the air, we will give you a copy of Donna's book. I will offer
awesome.
that. I will offer that out, so that if you want, by the way, and if you don't want a hard copy, I will send you an Audible copy, right? Because you've done this on Audible too, right?
Absolutely.
Right. So how about this? If you send a question, we use it on the air, I will send you an Audible version of the book. How's that sound? Because a lot more people want to listen to the Audible version. We'll do that.
Mm-hmm.
All right? So,
great.
So you're okay with that, Donna, right? You're okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So last time you're on, we talked about the orchestrated onboarding process, you know, and basically kind of the nuts and bolts of it. But now we're going to dig into the principles of it. And because this is something we want to talk about. And also, I want to let folks know that Donna has on her website, she has available for anybody who goes to her website, the Customer Onboarding Manifesto, which is a PDF, which, by the way, may get into as we move along with this. It's brilliant. By the way, just get it. It's going to help you. So, Donna, as we get started here, let's talk about some of this process, because some people may have not listened to the first show. But I really want to kind of get people into the groove of going, you know, look, we spend so much more money on trying to, I said customer acquisition versus customer retention. And you have a model here that helps us do that. And I guess the question is, why are we so fixated on trying to get new customers rather than being more fixated on retaining customers that can lead to more business?
I think that's a great question. And I think every company needs to be asking themselves that. So I just want to dive into some of the points you brought up, Jay.
Sure.
So first of all, you talked about CAC, which is customer acquisition costs, and it can cost companies, it may take 1 year, 2 year, even 3 years of a customer renewing to get them to that break-even point. So even when you get a new customer, you may not be making a profit until they renew a year or two in. So it's important to remember, even though you close that initial deal. In our last session, we talked about, you ring the gong, you pop open the champagne, you're celebrating, but you're not actually making money because it costs so much to bring in a new customer, especially when your sales cycles are long. And then we have core, which is the cost of retaining customers. And generally it's pennies on the dollar to retain a customer. Now, at one company I worked at, it cost us about $1.90 for every new dollar we brought in to acquire a customer, and about 10 cents to keep that customer. And the reality is that even at startups, 50 to 80% of revenue is coming from existing customers. And those new customers become just like the icing on the cake. It's just the tip. So it's so important to cherish and embrace and engage our existing customers. But there's something about that new sale that really just, I guess, the adrenaline, the endorphins, I don't know, but or the old sales paradigm. I think there's a huge need to, sales has become, that whole sales model is becoming less and less relevant because the consumers, the people have so much more power now with the way they can research and free trials, and that whole sales approach is becoming less relevant, but that post-sales journey is becoming more and more critical.
So we talked about last time the custom order. You have this orchestrated customer onboarding process, and it's a beautiful process. Would it be valuable for us to just do a quick review of what that is? The six
Sure.
would that be valuable to the listener?
Yeah, sure. So the point is that you don't just get a new customer and throw your product at them, that you slow down enough to build a trusting relationship where you can collaborate and both be accountable to each other, so that you're partnering for your success and your customer success. So I created 6 stages. It's the orchestrated onboarding framework. And we start with embark, which is where you start with a big picture and you establish relationships. Then you have handoff, which is the second stage where you transition from the pre-sales to post-sales. Then we have the kickoff and adopt, which those are 2 stages are all about implementing your product, which may take a second or may take 18 months. And then we have the review to check in with how things are going, and the expand stage, which is really ongoing because most likely you have new products coming out all the time. You have new features, new functions. If you're working in like a consumption model or a land and expand model, then there's opportunity to engage new users, new organizations, and new levels of maturity. So even if you have, let's say, a business to consumer products. So for example, we recently bought some really nice fancy sheets, and the sheets are awesome. But you know what? That company also sells towels. They sell stain remover. They sell different things for the house. So there's huge opportunity for them to stay engaged with me, to show me all the additional value they can provide, and turn me into this loyal champion, not just a one-time customer.
I love this because your model is so clean. I mean, it's not overcomplicated. It makes complete sense, and it's adaptable both B2B and B2C, and it's also adaptable to IT and service, which is what I loved about
It is.
What I loved about the model. So now I think it's safe for us to jump into the principles of those models in the section. So in chapter 10, in part 3, chapter 10, if I could do that. Part 3, by the way, is titled The Principles of Orchestrated Onboarding, and chapter 10 is entitled Design Thinking Principles. So you make a statement in here. You say, while some companies jump on the customer success bandwagon with amazing speed, most ignore their customers. It seems many teams are too busy planning and managing to consider their customers. The problem is you can't innovate without understanding your customers. Ouch. Help us. Help us.
Well, there's whole design thinking schools at, I live near Stanford University. They have a D school, design school, where they teach people. So I'm just touching the tip of the iceberg here, but design thinking is really about understanding your customers. And the first step of design thinking is having empathy. And what I see with the companies I work with, which are mostly business to business, high growth companies, is, if you work at one of those companies, you're running super fast. You're in a lot of meetings. Everything needs to be done yesterday, right? You're juggling a lot of balls. And the idea, like, what? You want me to listen to my customers on top of all that? They're so busy. But what happens is that you're creating products and services and programs that you think might be awesome, but you don't know if they're going to fit your customers. Now, when I worked at a previous company, I was running the customer enablement organization, and we were teaching we had courses, which were full day courses. And at that time, most of them were remote, live online. And I thought, it's good to listen to customers. And the courses got great evals, great feedback. But I picked up the phone and talked to 5 customers. And what I learned was, most of our customers were small businesses who had very small teams doing a lot and having to commit. These classes were 5 full business days in a row. That they just didn't. They had so, these teams were, they were at smaller companies where they had a lot of responsibility. They just couldn't really take out that much time. So that helped me to innovate, to align with the needs of our customers, and we delivered half-day courses after that. And so now we could help them learn our product, but also fit into a more appropriate framework so they could be more successful.
So I'm gonna push this a little bit further, Donna, because you have a quote from Mike Gosp, who's the co-founder of Kickstart Alliance. And I just think this quote is so powerful. It says, "Whoever understands the customer best wins." This means that when all products eventually become commoditized, the vendor-customer relationship will become the only relevant differentiator. That's pretty powerful.
It is pretty powerful.
And you're saying that is absolutely true when it really comes to it.
Yeah. So what I'm seeing, Jay, is the relationship matters more and more. And the relationship doesn't have to be a high touch, one-to-one, person to person. The relationship is also how you make people feel, and that can be through a digital touch. Something I've observed over the last couple of years of, when we've all been in our homes a lot more, I see people delivery. I live in a townhouse, so I see the delivery trucks coming. I see coffees being hand delivered. I see lunches and being hand delivered. I see pets being groomed in a van that comes right to the door. And so people are expecting these kind of personalized treatments more and more. So we're in this interesting place where there's this digital touch where I can order everything online, but I want it to come to my house when I want it, the way I want it.
Right. Yeah.
So in addition, the way that the opportunity to build and deliver products is becoming easier and easier. So the products, whether it's something, physical, like my awesome Yeti mug that I love and drink from every day, or software, that's becoming more and more commoditized. Right. So it's all about having that relationship. The relationship is what can set you apart more. And for example, when I order from small companies on Amazon or from Etsy, I'll often get a handwritten card. And that's, something where you're giving that relationship a little bit more of a personal touch that is becoming more and more meaningful these days.
I love, you got me thinking because, Instacart became my friend, delivering my food or whatever, and of course, Amazon delivers everything right to my door. But it really is true that, I was texting back and forth with the person who would deliver my groceries or whatever, whatever I needed at that time. I was creating this relationship. I felt like it was a human being who was shopping for me, doing what I needed. And I'm like thinking about that now going, it really was kind of a personal experience, which made me want to do it even more. Right. Because
we're on first name basis with our UPS guy.
Right.
You know, hey Josh, how's it going?
Right.
How was your last trip to Disneyland? He's a big Disneyland aficionado. So we chat with him. We have a relationship.
That's awesome. We're going to talk about this some more. Her name's Donna Weber. By the way, it's Weber, like the grill. Onboarding Matters is the book. It's fantastic. She's fantastic. You're listening to her here on A New Direction. Hey, folks, I talk about Epic Physical Therapy. They are my physical therapist, but they're not just my physical therapist. They are the physical therapists of professional athletes and people from all over that come. Why? Because they customize a treatment program that is specifically designed for each of us. Now, it's not physical therapy in a box. So when you're ready for your epic relief, your epic recovery, and your epic results, go to Epic Physical Therapy. That's epicpt.com. That's EPICPT.com. Linda Craft and Team Realtors. Let me tell you something. You know what? Interest rates are going up. The housing market is odd, but you know who's not even fazed by it? Linda Craft. Because when she started her business in 1985, interest rates were 18%. She knows how to negotiate this market. You don't think experience matters? Think again, because experience does matter. And she's got that experience. I'm telling you, if you want somebody to negotiate for you on your behalf that knows what they're doing, you start with Linda Craft and Team Realtors. You can learn more by going to lindacraft.com. That's LINDACRAFT.com. And remember, folks, Hint Water. That is the water of DBNA TV. That is the official beverage. Get yourself some. And we're back here on A New Direction. And I'm with my friend Donna Weber, and we are talking through the principles of onboarding and the orchestrated boarding framework. And I'm stuck here. I'm stuck here, Donna, because as I read this chapter, and I highlighted a lot in this chapter. You talk about a Walker Customer 2020 report. That the quote is amazing to me. Empowered customers will demand a new level of customer obsession. They will expect companies to know their business inside and out and use their knowledge to design products and services that create a frictionless experience. To do this, companies must engage in a collaborative, consultative relationship with customers. All right, how do we do that? I mean, because okay, it all sounds great, Donna, but then how do we do that? How do we make that happen?
Well, so we talked about there's a consumer revolution happening,
right?
And it's mostly in the business to consumer space where consumers have more power now. So we demand what we want. It's a lot more focus on the reviews, the research, and it's not just about that the company, the sellers have the power. So the consumers have the power, and this is starting to drift into the business to business space. Because you know what, even though I might be the customer, let's say I'm a buyer for a big company, work for another big company from a big company, I'm still a person who's having these consumer experiences. And so it's becoming more and more about loyalty. So Jay, who can you think of that in the business to consumer space who really garners that loyalty, that fandom? Any products that you can think of?
Well, I don't know why this comes to mind, but Coca-Cola.
Okay.
It does for me. That's one. I also think, I'm also thinking about, I guess I become, Amazon has done this to me.
Okay.
Where I don't want to go to a store anymore, right? I become such a fan of what Amazon does. I hate saying that, right? But I really do. On a more local level, though, I got to tell you, Epic Physical Therapy, who I use here, I am such a fan of them. Heidi and Andrew, I know they're the owners and they are such good people, but their staff is so good and they make me feel warm. I know they care. I know they care about me. And they get me right every time. So, because I get injured a lot. So they get me fixed up right a lot, all the time. So I am so loyal to them, right? I really am. And so so there's some examples, I guess. Is that pretty good?
Yeah, those are great examples. So you have a relationship with them. You feel like they know what you need. They might even anticipate your needs. And Amazon does that, right? Because they have so much data on you. so they anticipate your needs. I'm also thinking of Apple. Apple, they're not the cheapest products,
Right.
but people, oh my God, whatever's the new release, people are just running line to buy it. And I think I was reading the book during our last time we met, but Simon Sinek, he talks a lot about Apple in his book, Start With Why, because they start with the why. That's all about the consumer. It's not about their products. And so really knowing your customer and meeting them, knowing what their pain points are, knowing about their goals and outcomes. And then when you deliver that and get them there quickly with a great experience, you will have a customer for life.
Well, speaking of which, talking about customers, Helen Hodges Krogan has written us a question for you to answer. Are you open to try it?
Oh, I'm ready. I don't see the chat, but
okay,
read it.
So let me read it to you. Helen asks, the world of low inventory and climbing interest rates have created huge changes in acquiring new customers and then finding them. Evidently, she's a realtor, then finding them a house. Do you have some ideas with how to navigate these waters?
Well, real estate is not my expertise. In my world, we talk about building your ideal customer profile. So rather than trying to be rather than trying to sell your product to everybody, it's about really knowing who your customers are. And that comes back to that empathy. So for example, you might be that really high-end real estate agent who's expensive, who delivers that white glove concierge kind of treatment. And then you really need to position yourself to engage with those kinds of people, those customers, those clients who want and need that type of service. Whereas maybe on the other extreme end might be more the lower cost, lower end.
Right.
And so it's really about knowing your customers, what they want to need, and delivering them those services, rather than this kind of washed out, we're going to do everything for everyone. That's really important.
Yeah. So I think what she's getting at here, and I think you experience this in your world, right? Because we're having supply chain issues, right? That we're having sometimes delivering the goods to clients, right? How do you deal with companies that, are dealing with that, and you're trying to onboard customers in the middle of low supply chain issues or things like that? How are you able to, does that affect our onboarding process, or can we?
Well, yeah, absolutely. There's one company, it's not due to supply chain issues, but one company I talked with, they have a 3-month backlog. So this is software, but you buy the product and then you're sitting around for 3 months before they even start the implementation, which might take another 3 to 6 months. So you're sitting around and you paid for something and you're most excited to be successful, and now you're sitting around. So, you just do your best with the backlogs or with the supply chain issues. But I would want to loop you to the beginning of the orchestrated onboarding framework, which is the embark stage, where you really set expectations. And those expectations and that communication and transparency may change depending on, interest rates and backlogs and supply chain issues, so that you are really transparent and not keep promising. So, I'm watching the show on Hulu right now called The Dropout about Elizabeth Holmes and Theranos. I'm sure you know all about that story. And I'm interested because that all happened just down the street from here. But she keeps promising, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. And she's keeps setting these unrealistic expectations. And what happens is she's building mistrust and frustration and anger. So, it's really important to be upfront. Like, our customers are not stupid. There's this consumer revolution. They have the power. They know what's going on. They can probably just go Google and find out why things are taking too long. So I think that transparency, that accountability on both sides, the communication and setting expectations from day one, and then ongoing communication. That's what people want and need. They don't want to be left in the dark. Because nowadays, we were talking about my UPS guy, Josh, I order something. I'm not just wondering when it's going to show up. I know where it is in transit at every station and when it's going to arrive at my door. So as consumers, that's what we're used to now. And so that even if it's, you're working with a big multinational, multi-billion-dollar company, that transparency communication is really important. So kind of where are we? This is where we are. This is where we're going. This is where we've been. That's really important.
Yeah, I think what Helen is getting at, and I think this is common in all industries across the board, right? Is that, if and I think people think that we do a good enough job of setting up those expectations. But I think that being completely transparent, Helen, I think is what really Donna is saying here, is that as far as you think that you're going, go another level, is what she's saying. You need to go even further with setting the expectations, because the housing market is difficult. And we do.
And we all know it's difficult. It's no surprise.
Right. And it's
we all know. I mean, I'm actually looking to move right now. It's difficult.
Right.
And then also those research shows that it's not about when things go wrong, it's how you handle them. And so if you've established this good relationship at the beginning, and then things don't go as planned, and I can't quote specific studies. I do have some stuff I could find that I quoted in a blog. But, they say conflict actually helps to build a better relationship. And so it's not that issues happen, is how you handle them. But if you start the relationship off in the embark stage and start building that trusting relationship at the very beginning, then when things don't go as fast as anyone wants them to, or they go off the rails, everyone will be able to handle that more effectively.
This is, by the way, I just want to say thank you, Helen, for writing in the question, by the way. And, it's interesting because you have another section in this book. You said, in this chapter, when you don't know what your customers want and need, how can you define and design proactive solutions that lead to their success, right? I mean, we're kind of talking about that, right? Isn't that what we're doing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, is what we're doing here. And then you say the answer is to harness design thinking principles to listen to your users. Okay, Donna, you did it again. Okay, we got to talk about design thinking, right? A little bit more here, right? Design thinking process is iterative, flexible, and focused on collaboration. So what do we need to do here first? What do we need to do to get our customers so that we are being more proactive in this process?
Well, in the world of software development, there's much more of an approach called being agile and iterative. So let's say, Jay, you put in an order for a vehicle and you describe it to me and I'm like, yeah, I think I get it. Okay, great. And I go off and build an airplane. And you're like, yeah, that wasn't what I had in mind. I was looking for a boat, So being agile and iterative is, you give me some requirements. Maybe I would sketch it out and go like, hey, here's a sketch of an airplane. You could tell me before I've gone off and spent 6 months building an airplane. You can tell me within the sketch, yeah, actually I want a boat. And then I might go back and sketch out a boat. And you're like, well, that's a sailboat. I'm wanting a speedboat, or I'm wanting a yacht. And so the idea is being agile and iterative. So so you're partnering with your customers. So you learn what they want and need, you ideate, and then you prototype and test, and then that's an ongoing loop. And when I work with companies to build out their onboarding processes, I often will interview customers to find out what they want and need, what they love and what they hate. And then I recommend that we go back and share, okay, customer, this is what we learned from you. This is what we built, and find out. So it's an ongoing process. You never really reach the destination, because if you're a high growth company, then you've suddenly acquired a whole new bunch of customers, or you're going up market or down market, or you've acquired other companies that are being integrated and new products. So that's an ongoing conversation with customers. And then you really learn what they want to need and meet their needs in the best way.
So the crucial first step that you talk about in is empathy. And I gotta be honest with you, I get a little frustrated with the word empathy because we throw it around so easily. Okay. And I get really frustrated with it because I don't think we're very empathetic towards the word empathy. I know that sounds crazy, but I feel like we say it and we think we're being empathetic, but if we were truly being empathetic, and if Mike Gosp is correct, and I believe he is.
Oh, and it's Mike Gospey is the correct pronunciation.
Thank you. And learning how to listen to your customers may be your most important skill. And I believe he's right. Then empathy, we have to take empathy to another level. Because I think we confuse often empathy with rapport. And empathy and rapport have nothing to do with each other. And I think, you know, I know we like to say like, oh, you walk in a mile in somebody else's shoes. But I mean, it's more than walking in their shoes. It's feeling what they feel and, you know, really understanding what they're saying. This is really an important, crucial step that I feel like we say it, but we go, okay, yeah, I get it. And then we move on. But
can I give you some ways that you can
I would love to. Yes, that's what I'm going for.
Well,
sorry.
Well, here's some questions. So to really understand what your customers want and need, what they love and what they hate, you use open-ended questions. And so open-ended questions are not questions that can be answered by yes and no. And then the main thing is that you pause and listen. And, you know, when I say you listen to customers, it's like a 20 to 30 minute conversation. It doesn't have to be this long drawn out thing. You might provide some incentives like an Amazon gift card to thank them for their time. But I like to ask them, hey, what's going well? You know, what do you love? What are your suggestions for improvement? What do you hate? Tell me about a fabulous experience you had with a similar vendor. That's a great one because, oh, you know, this other company did this really right. Or, you know, you guys are the best. That's good to know. Sometimes it's good to be validated that you're doing it right. Hey, I like, this is one of my favorite questions. If you had a magic wand, what is the one thing you would change today? And that really kind of opens up people's thinking, oh, I would love this. I mean, when people, you know, we're all used to going to the ATM machines to pull out cash, right? I did that last night when I was out on a walk with my husband. But no one thought of that until they brought in, some banks brought in some of their customers and they did some brainstorming sessions and they said, what do you want? And one guy said, I would love a hole in the wall to get cash out of. Now, I'm sure he wanted somebody else's cash, not just his. But somebody just said, yeah, I want a hole in the wall to get money. And that turned into ATM machines, which we take for granted now because they're everywhere. So that's where innovation comes from, is that kind of throwing open the doors and hearing. I had the opportunity to do a half-a-day workshop with Duncan Wardle, who is a former chief innovation officer at Disney. And it was just phenomenal. He really has all these ways that you think to help you think differently. And I've read this, I'm reading a book by Matthew May called, oh God, it'll come to me, shoot. It'll come back. But he also references another book I read, which I just love, called A More Beautiful Question by Warren Berger. And it's all about asking questions. Like in our society, we're so busy trying to have all the answers. Are you coming up with Matthew's book? Winning the Brain Game.
Winning the Brain Game? I was going to say Winning the Brain Game because he's got several, but Winning the Brain Game.
Yeah, the one I'm reading. So the thing is we need to ask questions. What happens when we ask questions, it like bursts open the doors, brings in some fresh air, and then we start, you know, we start not just brainstorming, but Matthew describes framestorming. And so we start looking at things in different perspectives. So that, you know, magic wand, hey, if you had a magic wand, what's the one thing you would change about our product or about the way we work together? It's great to hear from your customers what they have. I mean, one company that I worked with last year, they were building out a self-paced trial to conversion journey for a huge amount of their customers. This would be, you know, huge amount of money for them. So I interviewed customers, and one customer said, you know, I said, tell me about a fantastic experience you had with another company. And he said, well, you know, in-app chat. So it's a self-paced journey, but in-app chat where you can type in and ask a question and get an answer just when you need it. You have this higher touch moment that's really going to deliver you further along the journey. That was like, I didn't think about that. No one on this team of brilliant experts thought of that. The customer told us. So that's where we learn from customers. And it doesn't have to be a big, you know, fancy focus group. Just pick up the phone, you know, schedule an online meeting, 20 minutes. ask them, what advice do you have us? What else do you think I should know right now? And what would make our product, our service even better? And one more thing, and then you see what trends appear. So if Jay, you tell me one thing and somebody else tells me the other thing, I don't just suddenly shift just because of one person. I find about 6 to 10, I start seeing some common trends.
Her name is Donna Weber. The book is called Onboarding Matters: How Successful Companies Transform New Customers into Loyal Champions. Isn't she awesome? I think so. You're listening to her here on A New Direction. Hey, folks, Epic Physical Therapy, just telling you, they have the latest, greatest equipment, anti-gravity treadmill, compression sleeves, dry needling, and more. I'm just telling you, they have it all. They're certified in the latest therapies. Just look, when you're looking for your epic results, your epic recovery, your epic relief, just go to Epic Physical Therapy. I'm telling you, professional athletes do. You should too. You can learn more by going to epicpt.com. That's EPICPT.com. Linda Craft, the Team Realtors. Listen, over 3 decades, right? She's been leading real estate, and she started it when things were tough, right? Let me ask you a question. Is the market tough right now in real estate? Absolutely it is. So who do you want to work with? Somebody who knows how to deal with the tough market, or somebody who's just learning how to navigate it? Right? Of course you do. Experience matters. That's why Linda Craft and Team matters. So when you're ready to really be at a safe harbor when it comes to your real estate journey, start with Linda Craft and Team. You can learn more by going to lindacraft.com. That's LINDACRAFT.com. And we're back here with Donna Weber and her book, Onboarding Matters. I think, you know what? I think we need to have a jingle for you, Donna, and go, Onboarding Matters. I don't know. I think it works. I don't know. I just, one of the things you talk about is customers love listening to each other. And this just jogged my mind to say, one of the things we probably do not do, but probably should do, and I don't know if this is what you were getting at here, but maybe getting a small group of your customers together and letting them open up. And should we do that? Is that not a good idea? Maybe.
Yeah,
it was just something.
It depends on what your products are, but we talked about the need to engage, embrace, retain existing customers, especially if you're in a subscription model.
Right.
And so needs to be more of a focus. It might be a customer marketing organization at your company that is really focused on that. But once they're your customers, you're not really, they don't want to be sold to anymore. You might be letting them know about new products, new services, but it's really about continuing their value journey. And so sometimes the best way to do that is by helping them learn from other customers. Now, when I've interviewed customers for companies, they tell me things like, I know I'm not the first company to be trying to do this. I'm sure others have done it. They want to learn from them. They want to learn about the best practices.
Right.
When Apple Macs first came out, they were originally more of a word processing machine, but people were using them for desktop publishing. And that was never the intention of Macs. But then people start learning at what everyone else is doing, and they're like, I want to do that too. People were creating newsletters, right? Little flyers. And so, whole movements can start when customers are learning from each other, and they might be taking your product in directions you never envisioned.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I think, we look at sometimes looking at things isolated, one customer at a time, is very different than when you bring a group of customers together who can maybe, tear down that transparency. The word transparency comes out again, I think, in that. Okay, so you talked about driving customers to value. I could feel you trying to seg me into chapter 11. I could feel that, Donna. I was feeling that. That's okay. It's all good. It's all good. We'll get there. We can do it right now. So, but here's what I love. I love this. The trough. Oh, I got to do it. Let me do it. The trough of disillusionment. Right? We have to do that with a deep voice because there is this trough of disillusionment that you talk about, and it's really cool. So walk us through the trough of disillusionment.
Well, this comes from the Gartner hype cycle, which is about new innovations. So generally there's all this hype when there's a new technology coming out, but then that technology initially fails to deliver, so you get this trough of disillusionment. I've also heard it called the valley of despair. And then eventually the products meet that initial hype. So for example, before the iPhone came out, I got to go to a Mac World in San Francisco, and they had a prototype of the phone up in a rotating case with like a spotlight on it, and everyone just stood around it and looked at it, talking about the fandom. And so there's all this hype, and probably the iPhone did meet the hype. But what happens when you're selling your products, all that marketing, whether it's on your website or your email campaigns or your sales rep, there's all this hype. You're setting these expectations.
Right.
And then if your product doesn't deliver those expectations very quickly, then your customers fall into this trough of disillusionment. And you're going to have to spend a lot of time and money hauling them out of that trough to get them back on track.
By the way, this so works in the service industries too, because there's so much marketing on how great are we, how awesome we are, right? And then, and people, and I know genuinely companies believe that, but then a customer comes in and then what happens is they're disappointed, with their customer experience and whatever that may be. And then you're spending all this time trying to regain the trust of that customer. And so how do we eliminate the trough of disillusionment? So how do we, I have to do that. I just think it's so fun. How do we eliminate that?
Well, one is by, backing up to that beginning of the customer relationship at the beginning of the orchestrated onboarding framework, where you have the embark and handoff stages, where you build that strategic focus of kind of, this is the journey we're on together. This is where we're going and why and how and when. So really setting that, back to that transparency, communication, and building trust. So if you start off on a good footing, then you don't have to fall into that trough. Some companies, one colleague I talked with, he says that he warns companies about, he calls it the valley of despair. He warns them about the valley of despair. So it may be that your products take a really long time to implement. You're doing data migrations and connecting APIs and customizing code, and it's really long and complex. You might warn them, hey, we're going to hit this valley of despair after the third week because it gets really complicated, but we'll come out of there. So if there's going to be hard times, having that communication and transparency and setting the right expectations is valuable. So for example, Jay, let's say I hire you as my personal trainer, and you're going to say, look, after the second week, you're going to be hurting. You're going to wake up cursing my name. You warned me about that valley of despair, that trough of disillusionment. You're going to want to give up. But look, I got this great physical therapist, or got this great massage therapist. They're going to get you through that hard time. So you address it. You don't avoid those tough times, but you start by building that awesome relationship first, setting the right expectations, being transparent and having ongoing communication about what's happening.
And Helen, who asked that question earlier, there's the next part of your answer. Did you talk to them about the trough of disillusionment when it came to the houses? Did you tell them that? Did you tell them up front, listen, you're going to fall into the valley of despair because this is what happens to most people in this market? Did you, I'm asking you because it's really important that you prepare them for that so that you actually limit the trough of disillusionment. So,
and then also so that they know that the market is the frustration, and that they're not going to take it out on you.
Right. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. Good. You talk about in this chapter, first value, because customers want to see fast results. And I'm thinking about Helen. I'm sure, like you're in the housing market. I want to find my house today. I don't want to be in a bidding war with everybody. I want my house, and I want it on my terms. But you talk about first value. How does this play into this whole issue of driving customers to value and the trough of disillusionment?
So one way to stay out of that trough is to deliver value very quickly. And it may be like you're selling a house, you're not going to have a house till you have a house, and that may take a while. But what's some other ways that you can deliver value? Now, one company I worked with, they have a platform for real estate agents, actually, for the best real estate agents in the country. And I reached out to them because I need a real estate agent, and I got an awesome one. And so what happened was they were taking like 4 to 6 weeks to implement their platform, but their clients were getting really frustrated, and they were having to really struggle to win back their love. And when we talked about what sets them apart from their competitors, back to that first beginning of our conversation, the key differentiator is not their platform, because it's actually not all that different from their competitors. It's their awesome relationships and exclusive services that they provide. They have access to an exclusive community. Their founders and leaders are thought leaders in the industry. So what we did was we moved that, we called it the customer success manager. We moved the customer success manager from engaging after the platform was deployed to the very beginning, to week 1, where now we can start building a strategic relationship, delivering coaching, so that they're really building the right mindset, the right getting the customer using the right concepts, so that when the platform's live, they're going to be off and running. So, for example, back to Helen, it may be that you can provide some tools to help your clients define their dream home. A decision matrix. You might look at what are some small ways you can deliver value. It might be a nice notebook, that nice branded notebook. But that's just a little something that goes, oh, I got some value, versus, oh God, do I have to sit around for 6 months, 8 months, 12 months before I can get a house, and I don't know what you're doing for me in the meantime.
Give them a little value. Give them a quick win, right? Even though you may not be the big win, give them a quick win.
Absolutely.
Does that fall into that category? Because
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, all right, that's all right. So one of the things you talk about, how to scale in chapter 13, I'm going to jump ahead, how to scale customer onboarding and enablement. You say, beware of content jungles. And you said, according to McKinsey and IDC, knowledge workers spend an average of 90% of their working time, about a day or week, just looking for information, not doing productive work. And you say, when customers struggle to find what they need to use your product or service effectively, odds are they won't adopt your product or service, get value from it, or renew. So let's talk about content here, because it sounds like content is pretty important.
Yeah, so this is relevant, especially I would say for products that where there's a need for training or support. The customers need to find what they need quickly. I worked with a company where when I interviewed customers, they said that they want to find the information on their own, but either it doesn't exist or it's so out of date that it's useless. So they end up calling the support team for their help. And they told me, like, we love the support team. They're awesome. That's how we learn the product. But guess what? That's very expensive. So in order to start scaling your user enablement and kind of account management, you need to start providing some content that is really relevant to the specific persona at the right time. So it needs to be for the right user, for whatever they need at the right time. And on the sales side, we kind of get that. There's a sales journey, there's personas. We deliver this right content to them along this kind of drip along the sales funnel. They get just the right thing. But when they're a customer, they need that kind of attention as well. You don't want to, and too many companies, either they have nothing at all, or they have this content jungle where everyone in the company is building out content, and it's out of date, or it's conflicting, or it's not relevant. So there's a huge need to curate that content so it's for the customer, not just about your product.
Yeah, this is where I think a lot of stuff we see on the web is like, I get it. You don't want to have too little content, but you can have so much content that it's hard to find the content, right? That's useful to you. So again, I think this comes back to the first principle of really knowing and understanding your customer well enough to know what is the content that they really need, and are you making it easy for them to find? Right, which again sounds like you need to have a some sort of a customer, state of the union meeting. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And then you don't want it to be a duplication. Of this one company I worked with had 4 different getting started guides built by 4 different teams. And the customers like they, for that the company I was working with that was building up that self-paced trial to conversion journey. I went through the journey myself, and I would click something and it would say, here's 4 links to look at. I'm like, I don't want 4 links. Just tell me what to do now. Tell me exactly where to go. And then another place, it was like, here's a link to learn more. And it landed me so they're a big data platform. And so they would integrate with Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure. I clicked on the Microsoft one, and it brought me to the platform where you can learn every single thing about Microsoft, whether it be Excel, Word, Teams. I'm like, now you want me to spend 19% of my time digging around, getting that piece of information? That is no way to treat a customer.
It's frustrating. Donna, we've been on an hour.
It goes quickly.
It really does. So tell people how to get a hold of you, and also that they can download your the onboarding PDF.
Yeah, so there's the customer onboarding manifesto. Just go to my website, www.donnaweber.com. That's 2 N's and 1 B, like the barbecue. www.donnaweber.com. And then if you sign up, there'll be a pop-up. You can get the manifesto. And also my next article that's coming out in early June was all about the principles of customer onboarding.
Also, I just want to encourage people, you need to follow her on LinkedIn. She really does some awesome videos, and she does these little awesome video slots, and she's so good. And you think that you don't need the information, but then you get mesmerized by her and you go, oh, you know what? I really did need that information. So, really connect with her on LinkedIn, and you can connect. It's Donna Weber on LinkedIn too, right? They can do
correct. Yes.
LinkedIn.com.
2 N's, 1 B.
Is /in/Donna Weber.
Donna Web. No, it's Donna. It's LinkedIn.com/in/Donna Web.
Donna Webb, DONNWEB, and connect with her. She's outstanding. I'm just telling you, and you'll love her stuff. And if you don't want to connect with her, follow her, and you still get to see her stuff. All right. Hey, folks, you're welcome. Folks, this is the show. You know what I say to you every week? You know what? You're in control of 3 things, right? Your attitude, your effort, and your resilience at all times. Doesn't matter what's going on. Doesn't matter what the circumstances are. It's not always easy. But when you have a great attitude, when you give your best effort, and when you get back up, things change in your world, because it gives you an opportunity to make a new choice. I'm going to be back next week with another great guest. It's going to be another great show. It's going to be another great book. And as I say to you every week, and you know what that is? Ciao, everybody.